Hello, my friends. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Well, with my final report from the World Championship match. Without keeping any suspense, I will announce right away that Vishy Anand retained his title by defeating Boris Gelfand in the tie-break mini match by the score of 2.5 to 1.5. Vishy, for I don't know what time, is the world champion, and well, congratulations, Boris. Well, our big thanks, and well, we're sorry, but well, one man had to win. Yeah, it came down to this. I have to say that we expected more from players in the regulation time, 12 games. A lot of games were abbreviated. They seem to start in an interesting way, particularly Gelfand with the black pieces. Played riskily, played provocatively. Apparently that was his strategy, and Anand did not answer the call. He most of the time would just trade down and play safety first. I guess maybe looking to eliminate risk and take the match into the tie-breaks. They played 4 games of 25 minutes each plus 10-second increment. Now, let's see some glimpses. Game 1, Gelfand is white, and as you can see, we saw this unusual pawn structure already early in the match, and a few games that Gelfand had white and never got anything out of this. Well, it's a slightly different line, but the nature of position is the same. White doesn't have any advantage here. Black managed to defend his pawn on d4. And a reasonable move here in this position would, I guess, be rook c1. One might also look at queen b4. The move f4, of course, would chase that bishop away, but also weaken the white king. But I guess anything would be better than what Gelfand did. He played a nervous-looking move a4, the purpose of which is very difficult to define. Possibly bishop b5 somewhere, or bishop c4, to secure the position of the bishop, but Black's reply was very obvious and pretty strong. Well, the queen comes over there and then attacks the pawn on d5 for real. I thought during our broadcast together with Grandmaster John Spielman that White had to play queen d1 here, give up his central pawn and win back to pawn on b7. After which probably Black is slightly better. But maybe White can somehow prevent this d pawn from moving and build up his defenses. Although it's obviously Black who's playing for an advantage now. Gelfand played it differently. He went bishop e4 and then answered this move with rook eb1. It's extremely provocative again. So I think Gelfand's strategy was that if his positional play fails, which would do almost in every game, he would resort to tactics, and Anand somehow would not be able to find the best moves, or maybe wouldn't even look for best moves. In this situation, Anand, however, did. He spent some time and caught up on time with Gelfand. That was the only game for the duration of this mini match when both players got into time trouble. Alright, the move he played here was this shot, bishop takes g3. Opening the attack on the e4 bishop and, well, tough. If you play bishop takes d4 now, attacking the black queen, then there is this thing. Then the queen escapes with check, followed by rook takes e4, and that's curtains. In this tough situation, Gelfand found probably the best chance to resist. He played the move rook a3. I would also mention that queen takes d4 would be met effectively by bishop e5. Maybe white is not losing a pawn right now, but his position is just totally wrecked after giving up the g3 pawn, and he has weaknesses all over the place, and probably he will perish. So rook a3 was the best practical chance, and now, well, queen c4. We were talking about this during the game, although I was kind of wondering what after rook c1, this black had to see this. Well, this is a very good move, but it's hard to see this, and then queen e2, attacking two bishops. Truth to tell that in this position, now black has to take with the bishop, because he needs to have the attack on e4 as well. Now white has this strange move, and somewhat surprisingly, he is not getting mated, and he is gonna ruin black's pawn structure, and even if he's down a pawn, say after queen d1, there, and f takes, maybe white has some reasonable drawing chances here. But anybody, of course, would prefer to be black here. Well, Anand didn't find it, but it's hard to do. It is really, really hard to do. So he played queen b6, and now the following is pretty much forced, as far as I could tell, and the resulting position is going to be balanced. Rook g3, everything just comes together beautifully for white. He's able to get his pawn back, and the rook on g3 also protects his king. Here the right move for sure was rook g4. Need to take care of that problem on the g file. Well, expect this thing to be even. White, of course, can take on h6. And move king h7, it looked so good. Keeping all the ideas, possibly playing rook g8, but after rook takes b7, black is suddenly in a bit of trouble here. The terrible threat, of course, is rook takes d7, followed by queen takes h6 and mate. Simple deflection. Anand spent a lot of time here, and then he simply had to play moves, and it went rook g8, and then queen takes h6 came immediately. Well, I would say this, that Gelfand was the initiator of tactical play throughout the entire match. But I think somewhere deep down, he didn't really believe that he could outplay Anand in tactical play. He counted on Anand, well, ducking it. And indeed, that's what's happening, what's been happening throughout the match. And when it came to actual tactical skirmishes, as here, he didn't play the best. That queen takes h6 is simply wrapped the game up to a draw. Well, both players out of time, but white had some kind of initiative there, put it this way, and he could have for sure played this move. Well, create some serious problems. I believe that bishop f5 is not effective on account of this. You may win the queen, but then white will have a discovered check of tremendous strength, and will probably end up checkmating black in short order. So bishop f5 is not the right move. So black would have to play f5 here, and then white could step back with the bishop. This is an alarming position. I think black is under more pressure here with that pinned bishop. Maybe he should play queen e7, trying to bring the queen to f7. It's not over, of course, but considering that Gelfand was on the brink of losing just a few moves ago, and to get this position, maybe that's where you press on. But it didn't happen. Gelfand played queen takes h6, and after some forced moves like this, well, the game was drawn. Anand got white game 2, and he used his preparation. Obviously, he repeated the line that Gelfand played early in the match, and he came up with some improvement. So in that obscure variation of the Ras Salima, e5, that rare move played by Gelfand, I think maybe it was a one-shot deal. rather Gelfand probably should have let it be. It was risky to repeat it. Anyway, so this move d4, there were some discussions here, maybe f6, but came d6, and this, I believe, gives white, it's sort of on the face of it that white has a better endgame. All comes by force. How can white not be better? Black is totally undeveloped, and he has that c5, and his king is actually could get in more danger. I thought here of playing knight f6 because it seemed to me, maybe I was wrong, that knight d5 was still possible, although as John said, it's very shaky. Well, right. The idea is to answer c4, say with a6, but I'm not, I wouldn't bet on it at all. Long castles is a logical move, but now after bishop f4, the king is about to be caught in crossfire. Knight b5 is coming. So there was no other choice but play bishop d6. So, some 12 moves into the game, and we already have black totally on the ropes here. Just totally. And sitting there, pretty much giving up a pawn already, and white had a choice. I guess there wasn't much wrong with simply taking on g7 here. Or the black would probably play that. I don't know, we looked at rook g3. Now I'm thinking check. Rook e3. Well, black does have some counterplay. But his pawns on the king side are broken, actually broken everywhere. So I guess the white, of course, is for choice. No, well, it had to happen because Gelfand's been working on very thin ice, playing with black, like I said, extremely provocatively. And this time he simply didn't get out of the opening. And he was low on time, and Anand chose to take a different pawn. I wasn't sure about that because black kept his kingside pawns intact and was able later in the game to use them for some counterplay. They actually played very well here. That check. Okay, well, I'll question that, maybe rook e6, but anyway, that was very interesting. But we blamed the move knight e3. Obviously, that's what Gelfand was counting on. I think maybe king f3, that important tempo on the rook. Well, if white then brings the king over to g3, maybe he's gonna be safe from these checks, and then he has a pretty solid extra pawn. But knight e3 is one of those kind of safety first moves. But now there is no threat to the black rook anymore, and Gelfand immediately pounced with knight g4. This is where we felt that maybe for the first time in the game, black has realistic chances to survive. But it took a very good play. Our original intention was bishop g2, but I guess it's not working out. Gelfand found a very simple looking, but it's an unusual idea. He provoked f3, which we thought was a desirable move. But now, as it turns out, he threatens to play bishop a6 check. For example, if rook g1, then this move comes to great effect, because c4 cuts off the c file, and now white loses the knight. No rook c3 anymore. That was deep. It was very good play from Boris, and appears to be that black is fine. So what happened here was the move rook e1, and now that attacks the h-pawn. In this position it was possible to play bishop b7, making a simple threat of capturing on f3 and then playing rook h3 check to win the knight back. I don't see how white can be better in this position at all. I think he's going to lose this pawn back, and it's probably going to be even. Instead came rook e6 and f5, which is very logical. Now the white king's on the run. But Anand played a very good move, knight d5. It seems shaky, but somehow white holds in there. Meanwhile, he's preparing his own counterplay. In this position, we mainly counted on the move h4 for white to improve. Thought that if bishop there, then rook comes to d3. One move that John and I missed was rook h6. Well, quite a miss, right? Pin. Indeed, not clear if that would benefit white at all. Anand, who was ahead on the clock, Gelfand was terribly low on time, had to play, no, not yet on the increment, but very close to it. Anand played once again a safe move. He probably realized he's gonna have to go back with the rook, so losing some time, but he knew that he would protect his pawn on c2. So came this. Still, now this is possible, of course. Well, there were tricks, and knights are such good pieces in the endgame for tactics. Like this would be very desirable for black, just to get the f passer, but then comes knight f6. And, well, unfortunately for black, it doesn't get the perpetual check here. His other rook is also under attack. I guess Anand learned his lesson from game 3 in the regulation, where he overreacted to the threat of the black rooks coming to the second and threw away big winning chances in the rook endgame. Alright, so knight g4, so came this, and bishop b7. Well, rook d1. I guess this was reasonable. Well, white managed to break up the black pawn structure, but the h-pawn, of course, is a factor. And, well, so far, white hasn't been able to get his pawns going. So we felt it'd probably be a draw. For a moment, we thought maybe rook d7 was an interesting move. Of course, then there is h5. It's hard to attack here, because now if rook c4 or rook c5, any of these two, black has that rook c8. That wasn't easy to see. So, in this situation, indeed, the pressure against c2 forces white to exchange the rook, so the black king is safe. And the h-pawns, of course, are moving. Anand played it safe. That was his strategy for the whole match. And truth to tell, for this later stage of his career, he just became a very, very cautious player, and a good player with that too. Takes, well, good play from Gelfand. He brings his bishop back to f5 to attack. So white is temporarily 2 pawns ahead, but he's losing one of them. I guess more importantly that he tried to play knight d3 here. Thought maybe this would be an idea, but not quite clear how to proceed. I guess probably this move, trying to bait black into taking on d3 and fighting for a draw in that rook endgame. I'm not quite sure it's a draw, particularly if the king is cut off like this. Otherwise, white consolidates and can start thinking of advancing his pawns now with a4 and whatnot. The rook controls the h-pawn for now. Anand didn't play this. He went for more exchanges. He went rook h5. Another interesting move that we didn't spot while it was there was knight d5. That's a strange looking move. It's a trap, of course. Please do not take that pawn. And rook b4 check. Either mate or the other way, you're gonna lose your bishop to the fork. Or mate from c7. Yeah, that's the problem when you leave yourself with so little time as Gelfand did repeatedly throughout this mini-match. He did admirable job avoiding blunders, but it grates on you. It's just hard to do. Anand certainly was the more practical of the two. Anyway, so he played rook h5 and then bishop takes c2. He managed to drive the king there, but it's no mate. All he could get out of this was the a6 pawn. But that came at the cost of the f pawn. And this position I didn't expect white to have many winning chances. Oh, he's trying to advance by going a4 and then playing this check. But Gelfand alertly put his rook on the fourth, out of the way, and he's preparing h5 and so on. I really didn't think that white could win this. Anand tried. Went for this. Hoping to get some kind of 2 against 1. But black would have never lost this if he played h4. He's threatening to push the pawn. There are no options left but to take. Now the rook is threatening to go behind. So rook h5 is absolutely a forced move. Well, there is no way black can lose this. Because he gets to put his pawn here on the second. Now he's simply threatening to give bunch of checks here. g3, g4. Even if white plays a5 here and opens that flight square for the king on a4, eventually he's going to have to move more. And what is he going to move? I guess b5. He really has nothing else. Once he plays b5, his king has no place to go. Either this or I may play rook g5 right away. It's all about this deflection. Once I get a target. So that's an easy draw. Well, from my experience, maybe it's too much of the personal input, but when you're low on time in a situation like this, it's better to take the sure road. Leaving white with that knight that hops around, and that was I think that was just a strategic mistake on Gelfand's part. He should have been looking at this kind of stuff. Once you see that your pawn is on the second, then of course you can trust it in this rook endgame. You don't need time to play all these moves. He played differently, played bishop a8. Now came this, h4. Some kind of jumps, forks, but eventually, well, once again, the same thing. It's not clear to me. Here maybe h3 because you can't really move the pawn anymore. So he ended up doing this. Anand very wisely went for this position. I know it's a draw. He knows, Gelfand knew, but it's one thing to know it, another thing is to actually do it. Well, there is some centralization of the white pieces. Okay, I'll play a few moves. Gelfand was doing alright. He got pushed back and now knight to c3. Okay, so you're in this situation. Well, but white dominates this bishop a little bit, and he's thinking of bringing the king around, maybe via a5. The game zone, so you need to look for some ways of forcing the issue. And I thought you play this. For those who say, oh, how can you do this? You're going to be tortured in this endgame. Well, for a grandmaster of Gelfand's stature, it's an elementary draw. And it's actually quite easier to play than the position he had on the board. You still have the 10-second increment, so you will build up some time. And in case you let it go to a situation when you need to find good moves, by that time you should have maybe 2 minutes on your clock. This would be the right move. If white refuses to take the bishop and say plays b6, then it's easier for black because he now has the has this light squares under his control. And after knight d5, now he plays rook c6. And really, there is no more progress to be made here. No way, the king cannot approach, the knight cannot move. So that's an automatic draw. So really, Gelfand should have played bishop e2. Well, look what happened. That's nothing short of tragic. So he played all these moves, and well, Anand is looking for his chances. Look how alertly. He didn't want to play king a5, even allow this bishop c4. You know, he's doing his stuff. He wants to put the knight on c5, and that's irritating for the opponent. Well, the rook on c7, f7 is also only temporary. The king gets pushed back. Here I think Gelfand got terribly tired, and he played it wrong, of course. This was a terrible move, rook f5. He probably would have been better off just moving the rook on h7 and the bishop on h1. Just as far away from that knight as you can. I remember Karpov defended against Korchnoi very similar position years ago in one of the first match maybe. You gotta keep these pieces away from the knight. The knight is very tricky, but it doesn't have the range. Here it had just enough of it. Look at this check. Oh, Gelfand went king c8. He could have done king d7. It would have been better option because here he would have this trick. That's the only thing he can do, otherwise he's gonna lose the rook and pawn endgame. Well, here they would have another round of this maneuvering, I assume, with something like this. The bishop's terrible. And now, well, b6. I don't know if it's maybe with some help, time on the clock, maybe you can defend, but it's real hard to do now with that bishop. So it's clear that Gelfand set up his blunder with his unsure play in that position. He went king c8, and now knight d4 just does it. There is no way around. And now the king simply comes in. Well, the rook check is coming up to force the black king out. Only move would be this, but then there is that, threatening rook c6. Don't know. I don't think it's possible to defend anymore. If the rook goes over there, somewhere on f2, then there is this check, and it's just theoretically winning position. Well, okay, so he played rook behind, now check. Now white only needs to put the pawn on b7. It's accomplished with help of this move. It's all general theory, very well known for this too. Gelfand resigns. So, Anand took the lead, just like that. Then that set the stage for probably the most bizarre game, game 3. It's a theoretical Slav. I play like this. Anand changed the strategy a little bit, moved the bishop out, and Gelfand got the two bishops. Here, it's not clear what white wants. Well, his black is well prepared to meet any action in the center with e4. But one thing that Anand had to be aware of is that white wants to lock the center and obtain the space advantage. For that, he needed to play anything but the move he played. He played rook c8. That's a question mark to this. The difference is that after these moves, black no longer had the undermining idea. He had it. It just wouldn't do anything because white protects it. The black rook is no longer on a8. Going against the white rook on a1. So that was a big mistake from Anand. No, rather maybe an accuracy. But and one inaccuracy like this sets up big problems later. Now Gelfand played very strongly, straightforward. Okay, so he doesn't care if black repairs his pawn structure. he's just blasting open the b file and playing against the bishop on b8. They were looking at some tactics, possible combinations with knight takes c5. We couldn't get this to work. But when Gelfand played bishop a6, I was positive that Anand would move the rook away to d8. Because if white now does this, then black plays some move. I know, it doesn't matter what he plays. The point is that bishop takes c6 would be answered with knight c5. So it's still possible for black to play. Maybe he does the same thing. It's a sharp position. Maybe he can get to the white king. Anand frankly shocked me and John as well by playing this extremely ugly move, rook c7. I was making jokes that he positioned his pieces wrongly. It should be the bishop on c7 and rook on b8. Goodness, white is pretty much winning here, with the simple plan of doubling up on the b file and paralyzing black. I don't know if black could just sit there and try to defend that bishop. White would probably eventually find a way through. He can still attack the c6 pawn with queen a4 and then to follow. Anand decided to lash out, looking for counterplay. He probably had some lead on the clock, but nothing really that dramatic. The Gelfand, once again, on some moves, he spent some time on rook b2. He wasn't exhibiting a whole lot of confidence. But the game is pretty much over if you look what's going on the board. Here, it took e5. And I thought, there is a simple sequence here. You take. Now, if he takes with the pawn, then take bishop takes c5. Well, ugly or not, but oh, this is what you get in this situation. And the bishop on b8 simply cannot be saved. Everything else is exchanged. So, ugly referring to white's pawn structure, but who cares about the pawn structure when you win a whole piece? Gelfand's decision was probably also okay, but he could take on e4 here to the same effect, opening up the queen, so there is no queen takes c5. I don't know what black can do here. I absolutely have no idea. If he goes back, then the knight comes to d6. Black's forever paralyzed. Not to mention he's down a pawn. This is as lost as it comes. Anand obviously did not play it well. It's the second time in the match. First was that game 7, where he just showed some gaps maybe in his understanding of those closed positions from the Slav. Just allowed white to have his way easily. But okay, there took on b8, took the worst piece, allowed the black knight to escape. We were calculating knight takes f3, maybe that's what Gelfand did, but black doesn't have to do it. He's happy to be down the pawn. And we looked at this. Well, there were probably better moves. I particularly disliked that move. There was no reason to do that. Should have taken on f8, of course, and bring that bishop back. Granted, he's gonna go knight e6, so what? Granted, he's gonna attack, and it's gonna fizzle out. Next is bishop g4, and you drive him back. White has still solid advantage, but of course pales in comparison to extra piece, but still. No, it didn't happen. It came this, and it's hard to tell what he missed. And after this, Gelfand, he just hit the wall. He was thinking and left himself with a minute on his clock and probably still played the wrong move. Now black has to be out of danger here. He has activity. Difficult for white to utilize his bishop. He managed to infiltrate over there. Now, this is reasonable play from Gelfand. I was actually wrong. I was thinking that black was already on his way to win. When Gelfand played this move rook c8, I thought rook f6 was the best. There is one idea here that I underestimated. It's rook d8 and then rook d6. I need to be a little careful about that. I'm sure there are a number of ways black can reply to that, but white isn't lost, of course. Well, I guess your commentators went a little overboard. But Anand played differently. He played the move e3, which we didn't think was good, but apparently was approved by Peter Svidler and Houdini. Well, I can't argue with that duo. This, he took the pawn, went back. And now Anand, who was way ahead on the clock, played this move knight e6, which is a mistake. It's a flashy kind of move, threatening mate. There was nothing wrong with this kind of standard method. Okay, get your rook behind his pawn. He pushes and you push. So who's gonna do what here? I don't know. Once the pawn gets to d3, it seemed kind of balanced. Well, after knight e6, he's gonna end up down a pawn. Now, they started moving very fast, and then there were some gaps in our relaying of the moves. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but one thing clear to me, that like this part I didn't quite understand. King here and then king there. There has to be something wrong here with the moves, because I don't believe that black here would play knight f3 check. Not king f4, or not even a5, but this is what it was shown to us. Maybe they reached this position via some kind of transposition. So Anand, well, he cannot look at anything but exchanges. And here, no, well, it's just walked into a lost position. It doesn't matter. I thought c6 was unnecessary, but the calculation shows that white is winning. This is all correct. If they had this position on the board, this is all correct. Now, I don't know. If you have, I assume, no, there was at least 11 seconds on Gelfand's clock. Although I assume that he would build up some time by playing these moves in the rook endgame. I mean, this is a theoretically winning position. All you need to do is just to bring your king up to protect your pawn and release the rook. And you do it like this. Now, black doesn't have the time to set up this kind of classic defense because of h7 and rook c8 check is threatening. Before he does that, he must play king b7. And now he's simply too late. In this position, black had to be able to play the move rook c6. If he does that, then he's ready to meet the white king with these checks on the c file, and always coming back to c6, forcing h7 and then going back behind it. That's the only method to make a draw here, but he can't do this simply. If he stays down there, then the king comes to h7, and white then plays rook g8 and wins the game. It's theoretically, it's about as elementary as the position from the previous game. Now, I have no idea what happened. Maybe I'm talking about the wrong position. But according to the game score that I have here, Gelfand in this position played rook h7. I mean, it doesn't compute at all. Now, after king d6, they agree to a draw. If it turns out that the game score was wrong, and the players white did not commit such horrible mistake, well, please accept my apology. But I'm working with the game score that I have. So this brought us to the last game, and Gelfand down a point had to win with black. He did this against Kamsky. had his share of luck in that game in Kazan in the semi-final match. But now he faced Anand. So off they went. Now a different system, 97. As soon as I saw this played, I recalled, I had a flashback. Modesto, California, 1995. I'm playing the last round against Alexander Ivanov, and I am half point behind of Alexander and I think one or two more players. They ended up in a three-way tie. I have to win, and I play the Sicilian, and he plays this. Now I know that the theoretical way to equalize here is to play this because of the check. But pray tell me how you play this position for a win with black. White is just so solid, he's gonna take this pawn on d4. Well, black is alright because his isolated pawn doesn't have to step forward to d5 and restrict his white square bishop, but winning. Anyways, after some deliberation, I played it differently. I played exactly what Gelfand did. Yeah, queen a6. Well, my game with Alexander Ivanov was played in the tournament, so Ivanov obviously wanted to win the tournament, not just not to lose to me. Anand didn't have to. A draw or win would be the same with him. So in our situation, well, Alexander just pushed this pawn to d5. That's what he played. Well, we had a very sharp game which went like this. He wanted to leave my bishop on f8 imprisoned forever, but I was able to outplay Alexander, achieve the winning position, which I could not convert in time trouble. So ultimately it was a draw, and Alexander finished ahead of me in the tournament. But d5, well, it's a tough decision. I kinda had a feeling that Anand would take on d6. But what I didn't realize that it's probably not such a good move. Well, here were some problems evacuating the white king. So Anand solved them with queen e2, but now black is super comfortable in the endgame. Black has small advantage due to his bishops. Now, I'm not sure what this bishop b5 was all about. Apparently Gelfand wanted to provoke d5. He got what he wanted. Now, well, here, in this position, I just thought, what could possibly, pardon me, my chess base jumped in. I just thought, what could possibly happen? Black has to play this for a long time. He probably needs to exchange one pair of rooks. His kingside is perfect. The pawn on f6, it restricts the white bishop, and the white knight cannot get through. Black needs to concentrate for now on the queen side. Maybe rook e8 is okay, but one thing I could not understand, why would Gelfand spend 10 minutes in this position? Well, he has the initiative in this game, and Anand has to be feeling some pressure. His play to reach this position was reasonable, but hardly inspiring, and Anand had to be nervous. You don't give the opponent extra time and a boost of confidence. Rook e8 was finally played, but then came f5. Well, we could not agree with this move. As John put it, it's just giving white a bishop. Indeed, the bishop on b2 now can do things. Very loosely played. Not impressed with this, so with g5. Now white is trying to win the c4 square for the knight, so blocks it anyway. g3. I don't know, I'm not sure anymore if black is that much better, but maybe from practical point of view, he should have just taken with the rook. if you're low on time, you spend your time trying to find something better. But now you just have to take the game to this technical stage. Well, there's still some possibilities there. Well, the white queen side, maybe you can get to a2 pawn. The king side is not locked in yet. The black king is closer to it. I think Gelfand's plan, well, ambitious, and I understand the implications of the match situation, but it was just so difficult to play. So he ended up returning to the plan with exchanging the rooks. Already out of time and out of options. Yeah, it just waits. Rook 8. Now it doesn't have to take. Maybe Gelfand figured that he would offer this exchange later. But now things begin to happen, and he played g4. This is logical in some ways, but exchanging more pawns, and now white only has to worry about one more pawn, it's the h pawn. And he still has this rook on e6, that standoff obviously in white's advantage. And Anand was way ahead on the clock. I was confident that he'll find a way not to lose. This is a pretty good move, setting up knight takes h7. Can be played actually right away. Probably depriving black of his last winning chance. Black can make a draw, right? But draw doesn't count. Rook a8, that shows how disjointed everything was in Gelfand's play, and he had such a great endgame to work with. I guess they just reached the limit of the physical and mental stamina. Anand, I'm sure Anand struggled, but he just worked his way through all the stuff. He played consistently and was playing good moves, and quickly. That is very important. Opposite cover bishops. Now white needs to get his bishop out of there, and he finds the way to do it. Was trying to come to e7, and it didn't work, but now from g3. Normally the game should be agreed drawn here, I guess. Well, Boris had to try, but his bishop gets pushed out, and with waning seconds he played that. Well, that's the most ironclad method for white not to lose. He puts his rook on e6, and then there is really nothing. The black king is in no man's land. The rook is tied up to the defense of the d pawn. It's a draw. It's as draw as they come. Well, with this long report, I wanted to show you at least fragments of all 4 games. I would like to conclude my extended coverage of the World Championship match. Despite all the excitement that the players gave us on the last day, and they played, indeed, all 4 games were very interesting. It only came in contrast with their uninspired and bleak play throughout the regulation. If we needed a better confirmation of what Grandmaster Alexander Grishuk expressed his opinion that classical chess is simply boring because of the fear and overthinking and the fear of preparation, while in rapid chess you simply play on your instincts, well, then I guess the players made a very good point to support Alexander's point of view. I am not entirely sold on this necessity to abandon classical chess. I think the unhurried pace of a classical game is giving itself not only to the players but also to the spectator. I noticed that today John and I had to rush through variations, and we were interrupting one another and abandoning lines without seeing it through. It was a pretty shoddy work. So let's stay with the classical game, but give us Give us more games at the same time. I'm firmly in Magnus Carlsen's camp. I believe that the time has passed and gone for World Championship matches. It's just too much pressure there and too much fear of computer preparation. It causes players to be overly cautious. And it's just gone. Just like the way that Germans were part of the game as I started when I started playing chess, and it's gone now. And many other things, time controls of 2.5 hours for 40 moves, whatnot. Probably it's time to listen to Magnus Carlsen and go to some kind of World Championship tournament. I will be waiting for Anand to speak his mind on this. I do suspect that he's happy, of course, to have retained his title, but I do suspect that he suffered so much during this event that he's not looking forward to experience this again. And 2 years from now, he would be scheduled to play, possibly against Carlsen, possibly against Taronin. Well, possibly against Gelfand again. Who knows? Gelfand's going to be in the mix of the 8 players. It doesn't matter. Anand probably has to decide beforehand if he wants to do this. I'm not saying that Visha should quit chess. No, of course not. But Botvinnik in his time in 1963, he lost his championship title. But he said, I'm not playing for World Championship anymore. But he played in tournaments for 10 more years. And actually played well and enjoyed himself, traveled. Visha can do this, but I think this burden of championship is affecting his game. And I haven't seen him smile. I hope he smiled after this whole thing was over, but probably it was more like a sign of relief. Congratulations to Visha. As for Boris, well, we came close, gave it his best shot, I assume. He had a well thought of match strategy. Maybe maybe he's just not strong enough. I saw the missed opportunities, and when Anand gave it to him, maybe he's just not strong enough physically to be the world champion. No, I mean chess-wise. Maybe, well, physically, no, of course it's a problem for everybody over 40. But I meant to say that chess-wise, maybe he's just not that strong to be called the world's #1 player. But of course, his quest deserves nothing but admiration and hats off. Great job, Boris. You're not going home a loser. You're going home a challenger who was turned down, but you gave it all you have. Well, with that, I'll conclude my reports. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. That's the extra long one, 53 minutes. Let's take a break, some 10 days or so, maybe less, slightly more than a week before Tau Memorial begins in Moscow. We're going to see Hikaru back in action and Magnus Carlsen and a whole bunch of Russian dudes. Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. Alright, this is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Have a good day. Hi there, chess fans. With today's New in Chess trivia question, where during our Game of the Day coverages, you can win a 1-year subscription to the award-winning Dutch magazine New in Chess. All you have to do is to listen carefully to today's question and send your answer by email to us at trivia@chessclub.com. Please remember to also include your full name, ICC username, and postal address. And here is today's New in Chess trivia main prize question.